Hello and welcome everyone, Marcus Small here from thesmallman.com. Today I'm going to show you how you can save a batch of files down to a directory very quickly, very easily, with very little code. Okay, so here's basically a semi-output report, it's the baseline of a dashboard, so you can add to it, etc., etc. Now what you want to do is you've got different regions or departments or sub-departments, and as you change those sub-departments, the report changes and you're like, oh, okay, I've got to use the drop down to save 1, 2, 3, 4 different reports, or it could be 40. Now what you want to do is take the work out of doing that and get it to happen automatically. So this cell changes based on what's happening in the spreadsheet. So basically this cell is feeding from this list, and then that's feeding into your calculations page. So if you change this cell, basically all of the data on here changes because everything else is changing. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll create a process that actually updates this particular cell. All right, so let's go into the back end of Excel. So we'll press Alt F11, and then we'll insert a module. All right, so we'll call this MDL, we'll say copy, yeah? All right, so we'll create a sub and we'll save, we'll call it save to drive. Nice one. All right, so once we've got the sub created, what we want to do is we want to set a path, yeah? So we're going to dim a path, but instead of dimming, what I'll do is I'll say the constant path is equal to, and then I'll just say 1, just to stop the code, yeah? I don't want it to bug out. So what I want to do is, in my directory, I've got a drive here called See My Files, yeah? So I always do it like this. I always copy that drive, because that might be a long drive, yeah? And then I go back into Excel, and then in quotation marks, I paste that drive, yeah? And then I do a backslash and then close my bracket. Now let's have a look. No, I haven't put it in quotation marks. Well, I did. It's just my quotation mark button is not working efficiently. All right, good stuff. So that's my constant path, yeah? Now I just want a looping construct, so I need an integer or a long integer. So I'm going to dim I as a long integer. It only needs to be an integer because there's only 4 iterations, yeah? Now, that's basically the setup. And then what I want to do after that point is I want to create a looping construct. So I'll say for I is equal to, now the information starts in the second row. So let's go back to see where it starts from. It starts from here, 2, 3, 4, and 5, yeah? So we want to skip out the header row, so we may as well start our loop in 2. So we'll say 2, 2, 5, yeah? And then, that's a bit unflexible. So this 5, I'm going to change this on the fly. So this 5, what we might do, which sheet is it? List. Okay, so we'll say sheet 1, so that's the list sheet code name, dot, and I might just grab the bottom row. So I'll say range, and then I'll say A. Once again, that button's not working so good. A, and then ampersand rows dot count dot, and then IntelliSense is going to tell me it's Excel up dot row. Okay, so that is the same as writing 5. So now if that list grows, it's dynamic, yeah? So that says from 2 to 5. It goes to the bottom of column A, comes up. When it hits something, now it knows, yeah? But if you want to keep it simple, if you want to keep your code simple, you could just say 5, yeah? But if you want to make it flexible, say this. All right, so now we close our loop and we say next I. Next I. All right, so in here, if you've been watching my series, this is where the magic happens. Inside, between the 4 and the next, this is where you get to sort of add your piece of the equation. So you can make magic happen here. So basically, what we want to do is we want to change the cell that's in our output page, and then that's going to be equal to a rolling range of cells from 2 to 5 in the list sheet. So we'll get the cell where it actually exists. So in the dashboard sheet, this cell is F4, okay? Now we could name range that, but we're going to have a range of issues with external links. We're already going to have those sort of issues because I've got conditional formatting inside this model, but so we won't add to that. So we'll just say square bracket F4, close square bracket, is equal to, and now we want to use the code name here, and we know, we saw it before, it started in row 2 in column A. No, in column A. As soon as you go out of the line, it just expects you're finished rather than you're demonstrating something. All right, so we go sheet 1, yeah? Dot. Okay, so we need to make this flexible, so I can't use any square brackets. So it is A and then ampersand I, yeah? So that's 2, A2, yeah? And that's all I have to do. So I basically could run a test on that to say that F4, and I intend to run this from the dashboard sheet, so I can just leave that hanging as is. And I'm going to say that is equal to A2 in the first instance on the list sheet, yeah? All right, so that's the first part of the equation, and you could test that if you liked. You could, I'll just move you. And we could just say, let's minimize this across. We could just go, oh, okay, we're just going to see if this works. And I won't do anything per se to the code. What we'll do is this cell here, let me just move this across a little bit. I'll have to move you. There we go. All right, now we can see it a little bit better. And what it should do is should change to London. So we'll press F8. And it changes to London, yeah? And then I'll press F8 again, changes to New York. Again, Paris, and then Tokyo, and then goes out because there's only 4 iterations of our looping construct, yeah? Okay, so that we know that that's working, and it's all tickety-boo, so we stop the process. And now what we've got to do is we've got to replicate this action, yeah? So this is the action we want to replicate. If we right-click the sheet, we want to go Move or Copy, and we want to create a copy, yeah? So by doing that, it just creates, I meant to say Move or Copy, and then I want to move to a new workbook and I want to make a copy, yeah? So it moves the dash sheet to a new workbook, yeah? That's effectively what we want to replicate, yeah? And the code for that is not that intuitive. It is the worksheet code name and then .copy. So where am I in? I'm in the dash sheet here. So I'll say sheet 5 .copy, yeah? And what that does is the manual process that I just went through. It just copies the sheet to a new workbook, yeah? And it leaves this sheet as is, yeah? All right, so that's fantastic. Now, when the data is there, this new sheet that's been created, let me just go in here, this one becomes the focus, yeah? So basically, we were on the other workbook. This becomes now the active workbook. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, now, can you make all of these cells equal themselves? Rather than copy and paste, I'm just going to say, please equal yourself, yeah? So I'm going to say, back in the code, I'm going to say, so I'll say, I might just grab A1. How far across does this guy go? We're in I might go over to J, yeah? Give us a bit of room, yeah? All right, so we'll say square bracket A1 to J, say 100. Now, you can get away with doing this either way. So you can say dot value is equal to, well, itself. So hopefully it won't bug out. So I'm just going to copy it, paste it, yeah? So one of these values you don't need, yeah? One of them, I can't remember which one, but you can either have it with both or just have one without. I can't remember off the top of my head which one it is. So I'll just leave it elongated like that. at the end I might go back and run a test and see if I can work out which one is not required, yeah? But it doesn't matter, it'll work either way, yeah? All right, so once we've done that, everything's hard-coded, so basically the values are equal to themselves, so you take out a lot of the external links. Not all of them in this instance because, as I said, I've got conditional formatting. All right, now, what we want to do is we want to save that file, and we've got a path up here, and then you see down the bottom here, I've got a file name, yeah? So we'll grab the concatenation of the path and the file name, yeah? So we say, now the other workbook becomes the active workbook. So we'll say active workbook dot save as, there it is, there's the point that we want. And then what we'll do is we need the path. Yeah, so we say path, ampersand, and then we want the value that's in this cell down here. So just click into this cell to get the location because I've got all of the grid lines off, and it's cell C32. So we'll go back into the code and we'll say square bracket C32. Now remember, this particular cell, yeah, this particular workbook is the active workbook. I don't have to address any sheets or anything like that. It will always be the active workbook, yeah? So we press enter, and now we just say, can you please close the active workbook? So we say active workbook dot close. Nice, all right. And then, so it's saved, and it's closed, and we're all good, yeah? Now, just so things don't go Pete Tong while we're running through the automatic process, what we want to do is we want to sort of wrap the whole thing in a display alerts equals false. So basically we want to say application.display alerts is equal to false. Now, the reason I've done that at the end is you don't find out until after you've run the process that the alerts box comes up to you. Like, it can come up asking you, are you right to save stuff? You know, like a little dialog box. And so you don't want that to happen, so you add that in there and then you take it away over here. So you add it at the start and then you take it off at the end. So false becomes true. All right, so that effectively, I've just got some of the code. I'll just bring this up to speed. I'll have to drop you down. That effectively is the entire procedure, yeah? So let's have a look at how that runs. So basically in here, we've got no files. Let me just close this one. Don't save. And we'll just run through it one by one, yeah? So if I just move this across, so we've got it in a nice spot, I'll get it way out of the road so we can see that cell moving and changing. That's better. All right, so let's kick the process off. So we'll say F8. Actually, we might open the locals window, so I'll go view locals window, and you can see that the path is equal to C my files. Don't display alerts. Now, this guy should say 5. There you go. It says 5. So it's equal to 5, yeah? Now, we want to change Tokyo to London. We know this is going to work because we've already run a test. So we press F8. That's all good. Now it's got to move the sheet. And as long as I get the worksheet code name right, I should be okay. Yeah, so it's moved the sheet. The colors have changed a bit, but we can sort of fix that in the source sheet. So get the color palette the same between the two. Now it should copy the values between A1 and J100. Yeah. Now it saves the workbook and then we close the workbook. And once we've done that, we can go into this folder and can see London's been created. Yeah. Now we go to the next one and we should be able to see it creating New York. So it'll go through exactly the same process, hives New York off, pastes the values, saves New York, closes the workbook. Goes to the next item, Paris, copies to another location, locks the values in, saves the file, close. And then the final one is Tokyo, locks the values, saves the workbook, close. And then display alerts because you want that to actually be true, and then out you go, yeah? Now, if we were to go into this folder, you see London, New York, Paris, Tokyo. And if I was to open one of these, say Paris, for example, you should get different numbers and they should be nice and hard-coded inside there. So that is effectively how you push data from a workbook that's a regulated template that has all of your formulas based off a single cell, that one cell to rule them all methodology, and get that to save down to your directory one after another. Now I've only done 4 in this instance, you might do 400, yeah? And it should run just as smoothly. All right, well, I hope that helps, and I hope you have a fantastic day. Take it easy, everyone.